You are listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Welcome back. Welcome to another new week. And if this is the first time that you're tuning in, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you found us. This has been an incredible summer, but today is the end of that. I've spent all summer with the boys for the first time, really, since having them. I'd always worked full time, so I never got to spend my summers with them, and it was incredible. We did so many fun things. We went to the planetarium, the zoo. We had millions of picnics at the park, and it was wonderful, and I'm so grateful for that time with them. But they're back now, and I'm back into my early morning routine, which I secretly love. I do love staying up late at night and reading and just kind of connecting with them, watching movies. But now that we're back on this schedule, I do like getting up early and meditating and journaling and doing my stretches while everyone's still asleep, and then getting the coffee going and then waking them up. Like, there's something really special about that. And I know that these years are going to fly by. And so to have that, I just love it. And I notice it. And I'm sure you have your own special routines with your little ones too, which is kind of cool. So I encourage you to write it down, because it just really, it does go so fast. And I know it's cliche to say that, but I'm finding, Nash is in second grade now, DC's in pre-K, like it really does go by fast. So to memorialize it in some way, I think is always a good idea. But moving on, it is a new week, so I have a new interview for you, and my guest today is amazing. She is a just so well-spoken and brilliant woman. She is the CEO and founder of Lunya, which is a high-end sleepwear line, and so her business began when she realized that there was a hole in the market. There was no one doing this. And so if you look at like Lululemon, who really took high-end workout gear to the next level, this is what she's doing with Lunya. And their products are so beautiful and so comfortable. They use a bunch of different kinds of fabrics, and they're just a stellar high-end company. But what I really wanted to ask her was, how do you build a business from idea, from dream to an actual practical plan? Like, what do you do? What are the first steps? And so she takes me through, the process that it took to go from that idea into an actual functioning business. And so a lot of what she shares is practical advice, processes that you need to put into place, people that you need to put into place, and the timeline that takes. But really, I think the biggest takeaway that I got from her was that you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't. So many people, when they're starting businesses, especially women, you have to have a business plan. You have to have everything, written out and da-da-da-da. And that's not true, because that's not life. That's not how things work. So a lot of trial and error, a lot of figuring things out, a lot of listening to the whispers and just following along and meeting the right people at the right time. That all comes into play as well. So I think you're definitely going to get a lot out of this episode. I think you're going to learn a lot. And I hope that it inspires you to go after your dreams too. It is possible. Have the intention, have the dream, and then follow it and don't give up. And who knows what'll happen. And I just wanted to leave off with a thank you to all of you who have been leaving reviews on the podcast. That means so much to me and really enforces, why I'm doing this work. Who is it for? Who's even listening to this right now? It helps me connect with you. So I wanted to share this latest review from AStace123. And she said, I discovered this podcast today and I'm loving it. I think this would be helpful for every mama and papa. I can't wait to share this goodness with my loved ones. And I love that you said that it's not just for moms, because it is. It's for everybody who wants to learn something new, up-level their lives, connect with the meaning of life. Why are we here? What's going on? Like, what is the purpose? And so I love reviews like that. So thank you. And I think I'm going to be sharing reviews each and every week, because it really does connect us all. You're listening to this, whether you're on your walk or on your commute, and it connects you to another listener who's maybe resonating with something that you resonated with. So I think that's just super cool. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Ashley Merrill. And if you would be so kind to share it out and leave a review yourself, who knows, maybe I'll share it with our audience next week. Enjoy, guys. Well, hello, Ashley. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm so excited to give our listeners some practical entrepreneurial advice. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So before we get started, how would you describe your journey into entrepreneurship? How did it all begin?
My goodness. It began by recognizing a problem. I was somebody who was wearing my husband's old clothes around the bedroom. And I sort of looked at myself at one point and thought, why am I wearing this? And what I realized was, in an effort to be comfortable, I had sort of given up all need to feel good about the clothes, how I looked and how I felt, and the pieces that I was choosing to wear. And so it kind of sent me on this journey to find something better. It didn't actually start with the idea, I'm going to instantly create my own company. It started with me out there looking for somebody else who might solve this niche, and then realizing that there was a gap in the market there.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a lot. Like, that's how most entrepreneurship stories start. It's people looking for something to solve a problem, and they're flabbergasted when they don't have an easy solution out there. So that's pretty cool. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about Lunya and what you guys bring to the table?
So Lunya is a very high quality sleepwear company, and what we do is we really try to create solutions that help people feel like their most confident and comfortable self at home. Sometimes that looks, like just having best in class fibers, and sometimes that looks like having technical fabrics that actually have function orientation. Like, we have a cool fabric that helps with temperature when you get too hot when you're sleeping, which is a very common problem I hear about. We have a restore fabric that is great for increasing circulation post-workout. We have silk, which honestly is a naturally thermoregulating fiber. So great for if it's kind of cool when your body's hot, and it's warm when your body's cool. So it has this sort of natural properties, but it's also just like an incredibly luxurious feeling fabric. And so ultimately, we're a sleepwear company that tries to make products to help people have a better experience at home and to sleep better.
I love that. So when you were starting the company from the very beginning, did you know a lot about fabrics? Did you know a lot about business? How did you go from, there's a hole in the market to where you are now, which is just, you're just expanding so much and you have all these different kinds. And I mean, how did you get from A to B?
Yeah, that was not a very glamorous process. So it started, I definitely have the business background. So I started out of school at a BC and got a nice overview of business. And then I worked in business development at an online media company. But I did not have the fashion background. And that was ominous for me. How do you create a garment? How do you do something that not only have you never done, but you're also having ambitions of being able to do it better than everybody else and how they're currently doing it. And so, it started by putting my dream out there in the world. I went to my friends and would say, I have this idea and this is what I'm thinking. I would ask them if they could relate to the problem. I would see if they knew anybody. Interestingly, one of my first most helpful connections came from, I was telling a girl who owned a boutique near my house that I had this idea. And she said, I know somebody who does production at another clothing company. Maybe you could chat with her. Maybe she'd be able to point you in the right direction. And hear this very casual encounter of someone who you might not think would be able to point you in the right direction was probably the first key connection point that helped me get to the next level. Because really, it's a series of putting it out there, meeting people, and either them being the right person to help you or them helping to pass you along to somebody else. Sort of this was my learning process. That and Googling how to make clothes.
I love that. No, but I think that that's true. So many times, we have a dream for ourselves or we want something, and it is that putting it out, that asking to the universe, and then all of a sudden things start lining up. Like, I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in my family and friends. I mean, it's really incredible. And I'm kind of astonished that more people just don't accept this. They're always surprised, I think, when it happens, me included. But really, like, this is kind of a natural process that happens when you do kind of just put it out there. I love that. And I think too, like, by you talking to that boutique owner, like, you didn't come off as desperate or I want to use you for information. You were literally just having a conversation, a natural conversation.
I think the vulnerability of it too. I have this dream. I think there's this potential. I don't even know if I directly asked, but I think that people, or a lot of people who, some who know you and some who don't, I think they have an inclination towards connection and helping you succeed. Or maybe I've just been very lucky and I feel that I'm surrounded by people like that. But that has been my experience most of the way through. You put it out there, and to varying degrees, people, I think, certainly there's naysayers, but I would just say that was such a small percentage of people. Most people were just really excited to be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as your business grew and you became bigger and bigger and were more successful, what was the first thing that you did as far as expansion for you and the brand? Was it hiring someone? Was it, you getting, a personal assistant from overseas? What did you do?
Yeah, I did. So after Googling how to make clothes, I did, I started working with this consultant, this person in production that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up being incredibly helpful because she kind of helped me start to think about process. What happens first? Who are the key players? I didn't know, do I need a designer? Does a designer, and now I realize that you have a creative designer, you have a tech pack designer, you have someone who manages production, getting fabric and procuring it, and that whole process sometimes that's from someone who does product development. There's all these pieces. I didn't even know who the right pieces were. And so just having her, she helped me kind of line up a timeline and figure out who the key players were. And so she was really an important first piece in helping me begin to realize how this would work. And then she was able to help me kind of connect with different people who would be helpful, potentially, I think she was the one who connected me to my designer. And so she was really instrumental in helping me even know who the right people to have in the room were.
Wow, that's incredible. And it all started from that one conversation.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it really is. It gives me chills. So I have to ask the question that a lot of our listeners probably are thinking right now is, that sounds great. I love it, but I don't have the money to start a company. I'm either working from home or I'm a full-time mom. Where do you get the funding to do something on this scale?
Well, I think the point you made about on this scale is really an important one. I would say, it really doesn't cost that much in the very early stage. You do need money. You can't start something without anything. And I do think it's a good practice if you want to build a business to assume that you're going to need some amount of money to get going, to at least build a story that you can sell to somebody else so that they can give you more money. I was lucky in this regard. I had the capital to get it started. So I'm sort of an anomaly, I realize. And so I was able to do that on my own, but I am also someone who actually at this point invests in a lot of other people's business. And one thing that I tell them often is to get as far as you can on your own. Mm-hmm. I have a few reasons for that. One of them, though, is because generally the beginning things you can do inexpensively. And I do think there's a lot of value in not jumping in and hiring a whole bunch of people right from the beginning. Because I didn't have a lot of capital to put in it at the beginning, and I was very risk adverse around that, I was using this girl's hours very carefully, and I was learning a lot from her and always asking the question, what do I need her to do, or what can I do? And the process of doing that forced me to learn all aspects of this business. Mm-hmm. And my ability to speak, not deeply knowledgeably, but somewhat knowledgeably to my production team and my operations team, and as well as my marketing team, that all comes from those early days of struggle and having to do a lot of things. So one of the things I think that's awesome about that kind of early stage when you don't have a lot of capital is you stick your fingers into all areas of the business and you learn who you need and what good looks like. And that's so helpful. So I think that there's a lot. I mean, look, you can build a business, you can build a website for almost nothing. You can get someone to build you a logo for almost nothing. You can usually buy a URL for almost nothing. You can read how to make a piece of clothing for nothing. Having this girl help me get going, that's, there's sort of some nominal hourly rate for that. That was, that was doable for me. And so I would just say, get as far as you can. It also allows you to build a more compelling business model, which I think makes your job of raising capital much easier.
Okay. So then once you were at that point where, you had done a lot of the, bootstrapping yourself, you'd kind of build the foundation. At what point then did you start to go towards investors or seek funding from outside sources?
Well, so I think this is kind of where I say my situation is probably more of an anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm still self-funded, but it's a unique opportunity that I have to be able to do that. But I had ability to raise relatively early on. It started with the great news is there is a lot of capital out there. And I'll talk to people with varying, different impressions around this for good ideas that have real demonstratable supply and demand. But I get calls all the time from these VCs and family offices. And I think that there is money out there. You need to be far enough along, though, that you can demonstrate that you have something and you can build something that people will want. Mm-hmm. And that is something that, that's why I say go as long as you can, because you'll get much more interest if you can demonstrate that.
I love it. Okay, so I kind of want to switch gears a little bit. You are a mother, and you have this obviously very successful business as well. Why was it important for you to have your own business in addition to raising a family?
I think maybe I fell for the you can have it all thing. But no, I also wanted it all. I like the idea of having a life that isn't one note. And I was lucky enough. I had a great family, and my parents were both very involved in my life. But in the majority of my childhood, my mother played the stay-at-home role, and my father was more of the career person. And I think that I felt somewhere lost between the two of them. I was ambitious and loved the challenge of the career idea, but then I also admired my mom for the value she placed on family and the role she played in my life. And I just didn't want to have to choose. There wasn't a lot of people that I could look to, though, to prove to myself that this could work. I found people that were incredible entrepreneurs, or maybe people that were great mothers, but not a lot of people where I could see the bridge between both. Nowadays, I'm happy to say I think there's a lot more examples of that. But I just wanted both. It's complicated, though, in the how you get it. I think I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how I was going to time it. The timing thing sort of is an issue. You have to get senior. I had to get senior enough in my career that I was going to be able to lead people, that I knew how to do some of these things. But then, unfortunately, that biological time clock is right around the same time. So it was a really tricky. It's been a really tricky thing to navigate.
Okay. I love that you said that, because I think so many people, I hate the question, honestly, how do you balance it all? I hate that question. But again, it was like, you didn't have these particular role models laid out for you already. It's like you saw the gap in the clothing industry as well. And you just said, I'm going to do it. Like, do you understand? Like, that's actually really rare for a person to do.
My motto is be the change. I think in today's world, I think there's a lot of noise, and a lot of it's not very positive. There's a lot of things that you can focus on, particularly in media cycles right now, where it feels depressing and hopeless. And I've always loved that motto, be the change, because I thought it gave me something to do with that energy. And so I've tried, certainly not without lots of failures, but to try to live into that in my life. And I thought, well, it looks like a hard thing to do. I see this gap in the market. I want to have kids. I just sort of identified those things, and I went, I'm just gonna try. Yeah, it's tricky.
So what have you learned? What are some of your best practices for balancing work and family life and feeling like you're not failing in either? Because I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with.
So tactically, I have advice on the feeling of feeling like you're not failing. I'll tell you, I haven't for sure been able to overcome that. I often feel like I'm failing. And I just say that because I feel like it's just, I want to be really honest about that so that people who have those feelings don't feel like they're alone with them. When I'm not at work, and when I'm hanging out with my kids, I feel like there's so many things I should be doing for work. And when I'm with my kids, I often feel like there's so many things I should be doing, vice versa. It's like I'm always feeling like I should be doing more in one area or the other. And that does often lead to me just feeling like I'm failing. And then, that's basically me just describing my kids and my work, let alone my marriage, myself, all the other things that your friends, the other things that play into that. So I haven't found a great solution to it. The way I get through it, though, is I try to think of my life like a pie graph. I think about it, it helps me pull up and think about it in a macro sense, and then not get worried that maybe in these periods, these couple of years, that I might have imbalance. And I look at my pie graph of life and I think about, yes, I want career. It's really not so much, it's I want self-actualization, personal self-actualization. And for me, that does show up a bit in career. I want health, I want kids, I want a marriage, I want fun. I have all these things that I want, but I don't believe that I have to have them all at the same time. There are certain things that the timing was dictated for me. It was the time to do Lunya when I started it. There was an opportunity there that, might not hold forever. And the time that I started kids, I think I'm grateful that I did it then, because certainly my life hasn't gotten easier or less complicated. So I don't know when a better moment would be. And there's an aspect of just biological time clock on that one. There's just, I had to have one, but there's certain things that I can delay a little bit. And those things would be things like, I can have more adventure and more fun in the chapter that follows this. I can do some of those things. I can spend more time with my husband, more time with my friends. So I have had to prioritize in the short term, but I'm trying my best to make sure that long term I don't get out of sync. So that's how I get through the guilt of it. In the practical application standpoint, though, it's choose your partner really wisely. I think that that's probably my number one. Somebody who believes that your self-actualization is worth it to the marriage or partnership that you've built is going to be really key, because it will take sacrifice on their part too. And so I feel lucky I have a partner that believes very much in my dreams and has also been willing to change and grow a lot beyond the model that maybe he grew up with in a marriage. And I think that's really helped me because it's meant that we can have a balance with the kids that changes over time. And sometimes he does more and sometimes I do more. And that's kind of the fluidity has really worked well for us. I also like to point out that I have help. I could not have done this without a nanny. I always say that because I think people don't talk about the fact that the childcare situation. I had my kids in daycare. I had a nanny. I had to say no to a lot of work things sometimes, or to a lot of school things, I should say. And sometimes that felt bad for me. They'd kind of make a joke when I'd go into preschool and go, oh, they'd be like, it's great to see you, kind of like implying that I'm not there. That
passive aggressive.
Yeah, and I don't think they meant it that way, but it's because I had so much guilt about it. I felt that really deeply. And so there was a lot of sort of self-talk I had to give myself to get through that. But I will just say, at the end of the day, it felt right for me. I thought, this is what I need to be a whole person and a happy person. And I do think as a whole and happy person, I'm going to be a better mother long term. And so that's how I kind of did that. But lots of help. My parents lived close. And that's been really helpful. It's sort of like building in redundancy into your model. I had to make sure there were people there that could do the things that come up at last minute that normally, a stay-at-home or more flexible career person could jump on with the kids.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I love that you admitted, like, yes, I had a nanny. I had my kids in daycare, because often when women, put themselves out there as, they're the head of the brand, and they're, the image is that they're doing it all by themselves. And that's simply not true. I mean, it's just impossible, really. So I love that. I love that you were honest about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just sets a dangerous precedent for people to then look at me, and if I haven't talked about it, they feel like somehow they've failed, or they should have been able to do it all. And I just think that you're going to be sorely disappointed if you feel like you're going to have to do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing I've learned just from speaking with a lot of psychologists and life coaches on this show is people are incredibly hard on themselves, more so than anybody else. Political party, religions be damned. It's really, we're toughest on ourselves. And so for you to realize that, and to kind of say, hey, yeah, I feel guilt about this. I feel maybe shame about this, but I'm going to go after my dreams, and because I'm going to be a happier mom at the end of the day. And that's something that I love and I resonate with so much. And I think the listeners do too. And that's why they're listening to this show.
Sure.
But it's true though. It's like, if we don't go after what we want, we're literally at home. We're not really present. We're here, we're not going out and working, but we're miserable. And then the kids, they feel that. They absolutely feel that.
I think that's the seed of resentment, of feeling that you sort of had this other life that you would have or should have explored for yourself. And I think that you're right. Kids feel that. Husbands feel that. Mm-hmm. And I think people around you feel that. And ultimately, that's why I say, choose a partner that kind of intrinsically knows that, that knows that your happiness, and I don't mean the transient kind of happiness, but knows that your like long-term feelings of self-actualization actually matter.
Yeah. And was that was this something that you discussed before you got married, or, decided that you wanted to start a family? Did he know that you wanted a business, or that you had these greater dreams, or was it just part of you?
He knew. We did have some conversation. Well, he knew to some extent, just like I only really knew to some extent. Mm-hmm. Also, I was young when I got married. I was 25 when I got married. Mm-hmm. So, when I look back on my 25-year-old self, I kind of laugh at how little I knew myself at that point. But what I did know was that I knew I wanted a career, because I always relished the challenge of one. And I did articulate that to him. And I did know that I wanted an amount of financial independence. And he knew that too. I didn't know that it was going to mean me starting my own business, but certainly I had figured that was a possibility. I knew that it probably meant I wasn't going to solely be at home with the kids, but that made sense for me. I think I'm not someone who even babysat. When I was little, I like kids, but it wasn't what lit me up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, self-awareness is key,
right?
Oh, I love it. So, we're kind of coming to the end of the conversation, but if there was one practical thing that the audience could do, if they have a dream in their heart, maybe they don't even know what they want to do, what advice would you give to them to start going after something bigger than what they're currently experiencing?
Yeah, I think I recently heard this word ikigai. It's a Japanese word, and it's one that we've actually instituted here as a value at Lunya. But basically, it means that you should think about the things that you're good at. Think about the things that the value you can bring, and ultimately think about what you can get paid for. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that means starting a business. Sometimes that means a job at somebody else's business. But that ultimately your joy will come from the intersection of feeling good about what you do, being good at something and actually having that be a profession for you in some capacity. And that might mean, by the way, even a stay-at-home mom, or, if that's where it is. But I do feel like a life lived with that orientation does feel to me like it has more potential for joy and happiness, because there's such an authenticity to it where you're not like swimming upstream with what you actually like because of a title or some sort of end goal that sounds sexy or you saw on TV. I think that this ikigai concept is a really powerful one. And there's charts online. If you Google the word ikigai, they're like these overlapping circles charts. And I think filling them out can be an incredible exercise for you to figure out what is it that is unique to you that you might want to double down on in terms of your path forward.
I love that. And I think that that's key right there. I mean, it's exploring, it's asking the question that so many people don't take the time to ask of themselves. Who am I? What am I into? What am I actually good at? I mean, those are crucial questions that we should all be exploring, routinely, because things change as well.
That's a good point too. That's why I think I laugh at my 25-year-old self.
Oh,
different, not in a mean way, but just looking back, just being like, man, what a different person I was then.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So I do have some rapid fire questions for you if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Entrepreneurship is
challenging.
I'm grateful for
the people that I have around me, my family and my team.
Love it. And what's something that you've learned in life that you wish someone would have told you earlier on?
It's incredibly human. I think I was very left-brained in my approach to life. I figured it was going to be much more about skill sets and doing, but I'm surprised by how much it's about feeling and the emotional awareness piece, and how important that's been in terms of my relationship with my husband and my kids and my team.
I love that. So how can our audience find you online, check out Lunya, all of the things?
Sure. On Instagram, I'm Ashley, and then 2 underscores Merrill, Merrill. Lunya is lunya.co, Lunya.co. And then we're also on Instagram, and that's probably the best ways to keep up with me and the company.
I love it. And your Instagram is beautiful. And we were talking before and I was like, I just love it. Like, it's just, it definitely pushes the limit of what you're normally used to seeing for casual clothing. So I love it so much. It's so beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You have been listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you got anything of benefit out of this episode, please don't hesitate to share it with a friend. Put it on your Insta stories. Tag me at Motherhood Unstressed so we can get the word out about the show and, the benefit that it's bringing to so many people all over the world. Really, at the end of the day, my mission, my goal, everything that this show is about up-leveling your life to the next level, to the higher vibration, through education, through entertainment, through just a sense of connection to others who want the same thing and who are interested in exploring, what is the meaning of life? Why am I here? And how can I make it as amazing and magical as possible? That to me is the entire point of this show. So thank you for sharing it. Thank you for taking 5 seconds to leave us a review and hit those 5 stars, because that's just so amazing and helps the show so much. This show is sponsored by Motherhood Unstressed CBD. This is the CBD line that I created with the intention of helping you, the listener, battle stress and anxiety naturally with the power of cannabis. Yes, CBD comes from the cannabis plant, the hemp plant specifically, but all of the studies coming out about cannabis are just so amazing, and the level of help that it's bringing to people, young and old, is just incredible. And, some of our clients have said, I feel after 3 days, I feel so amazing. I feel like I can take on the world. I'm not in my house scared to leave, scared to talk to people. I don't have the pain I was having before. I don't have the postpartum depression I was having before. It's just every single day I'm hearing from clients who are improving their lives from this product that I created with United States farmers and through a manufacturer, to really bring you the best product on the market with the intention behind it that is pure and full of love for you, the client and the listener who are buying it. So thank you. Till next time.